Does the Quran and Hadith call Mohammed a false prophet? What if one of the strongest arguments against Islam came from the Quran itself, not from Christian missionaries, not from atheists, not even from the Bible? The Quran. And what if Muhammad's own words appeared to fulfill that test? Let's investigate. In Surah 69, verses 44 to 46, Allah says, "And if he had fabricated against us some sayings, we would have seized him by the right hand. Then we would have cut from him the aorta." According to the Quran, if Muhammad invented revelations and falsely claimed they came from God, Allah would judge him. Notice the specific phrase, cut from him the aorta. Remember that. Years later, Muhammad became seriously ill. According to Sahih al-Bukhari 44:28, Muhammad said, "I still feel the pain caused by the food I ate at K-Bar, and at this time, I feel as if my aorta is being cut from that poison." Think about that. The Quran says that if Muhammad fabricated revelations, Allah would cut his aorta. Later, Muhammad says he feels as if his aorta is being cut. Many Christian apologists argue that Muhammad accidentally fulfilled the Quran's own warning. Muslim scholars strongly disagree. They argue that Surah 69 is a hypothetical statement, not a prophecy, and that Muhammad was using figurative language to describe pain. So, which interpretation is correct? That is for you to decide. Now, let's compare this to something written over 500 years before Muhammad. Galatians 1, verse 8 says, "But even if we or an angel from heaven should preach to you a gospel contrary to the one we preach to you, let him be accursed." Notice the warning. Even if an angel appears, even if the angel seems powerful, even if the angel claims divine authority, if the message contradicts the gospel already delivered, Christians are commanded to reject it. According to early Islamic sources, Muhammad's first encounter in the cave terrified him. According to traditional accounts found in Sahih al-Bukhari, Muhammad feared something terrible had happened to him. He reportedly returned home trembling. Some early reports indicate he feared he may have encountered a spirit or something harmful. It was Khadijah, his wife, who reassured him and encouraged him. Only later was the being identified as Gabriel. Christians often ask if Paul warned believers that even an angel bringing a different gospel should be rejected. What should Christians do when a later revelation delivered by an angel contradicts the gospel? The New Testament teaches Jesus is the Son of God. John 3:16, Jesus died on the cross. 1 Corinthians 15:3, Jesus rose from the dead. 1 Corinthians 15:4, Jesus is Lord. Romans 10:9, the Quran later challenges or denies several of these teachings. Surah 4, verse 157, denies that Jesus was crucified. Surah 5, verse 72, rejects the Christian understanding of Jesus' divinity. Surah 112 rejects the concept of God having a son. Christians therefore argue that Islam presents a fundamentally different gospel than the one preached by Jesus' apostles. Critics also point to passages they believe create contradictions. Surah 7, verse 54 says creation occurred in 6 days. Surah 10, verse 3 also says 6 days. Surah 25, verse 59 says 6 days. Yet critics point to Surah 41, verses 9 to 12. The passage appears to describe earth created in 2 days, mountains and provisions in 4 days, heavens in 2 days. Some critics add those numbers and conclude the total equals 8 days. Muslim scholars respond that the 4 days include the previous 2 days, meaning the total remains 6. The debate continues. Surah 2, verse 256 says, "There is no compulsion in religion." Many Muslims cite this verse as proof that Islam teaches religious freedom. However, critics point to other passages. Surah 9, verse 29 says, "Fight those who do not believe until they pay the jizya with willing submission and feel themselves subdued." Critics argue this creates tension with the idea of complete religious freedom. Muslim scholars respond that this verse addresses specific political and military circumstances. Again, interpretation becomes the central issue. The apostasy question creates even more debate. The Quran never explicitly states whoever leaves Islam should be executed. However, critics point to the Hadith, Sahih al-Bukhari 69:22 records, Muhammad saying, "Whoever changes his religion, kill him." Sahih al-Bukhari 68:78 contains similar language. Sahih Muslim 1676 is often cited as well. Historically, most classical Islamic legal schools prescribe severe penalties for apostasy. Many modern Muslim scholars argue these rulings applied specifically to treason during times of war rather than simple changes of belief. Critics respond that the texts themselves still raise difficult questions. The Quran warns about a prophet whose aorta is cut. Muhammad later describes feeling as though his aorta is being cut. Paul warns Christians to reject even an angel who brings a different gospel. Muhammad's revelations came through an angel and contain teachings that differ from the New Testament gospel. The Quran says there is no compulsion in religion, yet critics point to passages about jizya, warfare, and hadith concerning apostasy. Are these contradictions, misunderstandings, contextual issues, or evidence of something deeper? Whatever conclusion you reach, one thing is certain: the truth should never fear investigation, and beliefs that shape eternity should be examined carefully.